Well, another day, another poll. I mean, this is just incredible to see. And I got to tell you, you know what? For anything to be this tight, when you're facing off against Donald Trump, I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. I think that Kamala Harris is in a whole lot of trouble. And these new polls that I'm going to share with you here today, they prove it. Welcome to the program, everyone. It's good to have you here. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. I hope you had a terrific weekend. I did. And I'm just amazed at the amount of news coming our way because I want to talk about the polls. I also want to talk about some names we haven't talked about in a while. That would be Letitia James and Judge Merchan, maybe. We need to look at whether or not they're really going to keep their jobs. Juan Merchan and Letitia James definitely under fire as that case against Donald Trump in which, they're trying to charge him some, $500 million. That's actually going to the Appellate Court of Appeals in New York. And it's not looking good for Letitia and Juani baby. Oh my gosh, not looking good for Tim Walz either. This is the guy who's going to be on stage opposite JD Vance tomorrow night for the CBS News debate. And oh my gosh, he's like freaking out. Wait till you see this video. He's like giving Trump supporters the middle finger in the state of Michigan. Woohoo, a little touchy. Classless. That guy, my gosh. Anyway, we got a lot to get to. As I said, just a ton of information coming our way at this moment. Thank you for being here. Do make sure that you subscribe. It's really important. And I'll tell you this, I don't know if we discussed this on Friday, but it's out there so much so that MSNBC is even admitting it now. This Kamala campaign has a real problem with men.
But it's men. I mean, I think the real struggle for the Harris campaign is young men, older men, men of color, white men.
Men. Okay. Men don't like her. And when you're competing in places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You need both sexes, okay? I realize you want to write off an entire group of people, but that's not going to fly. Take a look at what I want to show you here. This is from Atlas Intel, and they've been pretty consistent and very good on their polling. This is Michigan, Trump, up 3.4. Pennsylvania, this is the big one that I'm watching because as goes Pennsylvania, goes, in my estimation, Michigan and Wisconsin. And what do you see? Up 2.9 in the state of Pennsylvania. Wisconsin up 1.5, Arizona, we knew that, up 1.2, Georgia up 0.6%. We knew that. North Carolina, I actually would be surprised if they go for Harris, especially considering what the administration is saying now for hurricane relief, the lack thereof hurricane relief. I'd also be surprised on Nevada. But you know what? This has been a very accurate poll. This again is Atlas Intel, and I want to take a look here at what that map looks like because we're talking electoral votes, right? Who's going to win the Electoral College? And take a peek at that one, guys. I mean, that's pretty significant. So this would suggest, of course, Donald Trump all the way to the White House. I also want to point out another poll, which is not quite as good on the track record, shall we say, and that would be the New York Times Siena poll. And yet even that one shows in Michigan, they're just a point apart, just a point. Harris at 47% to Trump. And Wisconsin, similar story, 2 points apart. There, 49 Harris, 47% Trump. This is a very biased, in my estimation, a very biased poll in New York Times Siena. But what's credible to me and what I think is important to keep in mind is that those poll numbers are very different than, say, where they were about a month ago, back in August, where in Wisconsin you had Harris at 50 and you had Trump at 46. Now that spread has narrowed, with Harris being at 49 and Trump being at 47. But again, going back to the Atlas poll, this one is quite striking to me, really, really striking. The other thing I do want to point out, and this is actually over at New York Times Siena, the Nebraska 2nd Congressional District. Okay, this is a really critical district, you guys, for the Electoral College, because you know what? If push comes to shove and you get right down to the wire, for example, if Kamala Harris were to take Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, I don't think she would, but if she were and Trump were to take all the Sun Belt states, well, then guess what? It may come down to Nebraska. And interestingly, Trump is up 9 in that particular district there, according to the New York Times poll. So this is just amazing stuff to see. I mean, New York Times, listen. You have to understand, we went through this on Friday, and if you didn't see Friday's show, I encourage you to go take a look at that, because one of the things you have to keep in mind is just the dynamics of the poll situation. It's very, very hard to poll with Donald Trump because the left has made it so shameful so pathetic and disgusting to possibly be for Donald Trump that nobody's actually all that willing. And I know so many of you on this show are like, hey, Trish, I'm happy. I've got Trump signs all over my yard. Well, you know what? You're the exception. I mean, really, certainly where I live up in the Northeast, you would definitely be the exception. And I realize there's other parts of the country where you can be a little bit freer about being a Trump supporter. But for the most part, some of the rhetoric that you're hearing out of the left, and we're going to play some of it for you today because it's disturbing. Hillary Clinton's back at it. You got John Kerry back at it. It's really, really disturbing stuff. So that causes people to be a little bit reticent. On top of it, you've got pollsters that are saying, hey, I'm on a recorded line. And they want to be on a recorded line because that somehow makes their poll more accurate, except that people don't really want to tell them that they're going to vote for Trump while being on a recorded line. And so I don't think the New York Times and Siena polling is actually as accurate as it needs to be. It's one of the reasons I like to go over and look at Polymarket, one of our great advertisers here on the show. Polymarket is a prediction market, and so people are putting money to work here, which is a really important distinction, right? So if you've got money that you're putting to work because you believe one candidate's going to get ahead over another, I think that says something. All that said, you do have a lot of people that are very risk adverse in this marketplace as well, because why else would you have 50% versus 49%? They still somehow believe that Kamala Harris has the edge, a very tight, very thin edge. But I'm anticipating, and this is why I like to keep watching it, because this will start to catch up, I think, with the overall sentiment that you're seeing elsewhere in the country as we get closer and closer and closer. By the way, you can check these markets 24/7. You can't actually bet on them in the United States or in any areas where the prediction markets are restricted, but they're open 24/7. So they're kind of fun to check, You're like, okay, I just saw this new poll. What happened in Polymarket? And so I go over there and check it all the time. These markets are, as I said, open 24/7. They're actually using crypto technology, blockchain technology with Ethereum to settle these trades. So just an interesting story in and of itself. But again, I want to go back to Atlas because this is really kind of incredible. Michigan, they're saying that Trump's ahead. More than 3 points in Michigan, and then Pennsylvania. And clearly, one of the problems I think for Kamala Harris is that she's not resonating with, as we discussed, men, and she's not resonating with union members and sort of that middle class worker that historically has been the lifeblood of the Democrat Party. And this came up actually on CNN. Like CNN's even admitting this. I could have told you this ages ago. I actually would never have run her for this reason. Scranton Joe at least had something going on in Pennsylvania, but this woman really is not able to resonate. And this is what came up. It's the worst, ladies and gentlemen, that any Democrat has done in a generation. Think about that.
But look at where Kamala Harris is today. She is only leading by 9 points. That would be the worst Democratic performance in a generation, 10 points off the mark of Joe Biden, who, of course, won 4 years ago, was sort of that union guy, Union Joe, right? Won it by 19 points. She's 10 points off his mark, and the worst in a generation.
Woo! Okay. How's that for you? The worst in a generation. Talking about a legacy Kamala Harris. Anyway, look, crazy stuff going on in the world today. You had the market down today. I keep saying one of the best ways to diversify, especially with all the unknowns out there, is to take a look at gold. And when you do, I want you to call my friends over at American Hartford Gold. You can text Trish to 65532. Just text my name, 65532. You get up to $15,000 right now in free gold. Free silver, up to $15,000 in free silver. And you know what? That's kind of a big deal because, silver is something that tends to mimic gold in some ways. It's not exactly the same, and there are uses for silver, but when you start to see gold pull ahead, a lot of times you'll see silver kind of trailing along. So it's a really good optionality, right, to have, and you're going to get up to $15,000 free by calling my friends or texting Trish, my name, to 65532, 1-844-495-1115, or go to trishlovesgold.com. You cannot forget that, trishlovesgold.com. I do. All right, let's get to more news going on. Worst Democrat performance in a generation. Think about that. Look at the Teamsters, for example. The Teamsters, they don't want anything to do with her. You had overwhelmingly the Teamsters coming out 60% to 34% in favor of Donald Trump. So that tells me a lot. tells me a lot about what I need to know about Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. And yet AOC is out there trying to somehow say, oh, no, it's the Teamsters' fault. It's that darn Sean O'Brien. He's deserted us. Hear her just last week taking them on.
I'm very disappointed in Sean O'Brien's leadership. I have found it increasingly alarming all year. His campaigning with Republicans, coming out in favor of anti-choice Senate candidates, coming out and campaigning increasingly with Republicans. I find this to be very, it's confusing.
No, it's confusing, really is that, it's actually not that confusing. Just look at the economy, just look at inflation, just look at what's happened to manufacturing jobs, for goodness sakes. Look at what's happened to middle American incomes over the last 3.5 years. It is not surprising to see that the majority of Teamsters, they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris. They're just not going to do it. They also feel, let's not forget, a little bit like they had the rug pulled out from under. After all, they voted for Joe Biden. And what happened? There was a switcheroo. A switcheroo. And suddenly a woman who really can't ever seem to win an election or perform well in an election, who's just kind of in the right place at the right time, shall we say. I'm being generous. Somehow she's at the top of the ticket. And you got this guy, this two-bit, former history teacher that doesn't have so much as a penny to his name. I'm sorry, the guy's been making 6 figures for years now in politics, and he doesn't own his house, and he doesn't own so much as one stock in the stock market. I mean, he's either, irresponsible with his money or just enormously lacking in sophistication. And thank you very much. I think a lot of Americans would actually prefer the business leader who's done some big deals and made a lot of money and knows how the world works, as opposed to the likes of Timmy and Kamala. I can't wait to see tomorrow night's debate, actually. I think it's going to be really funny because I think that JD has the middle class upbringing, but he has the sophistication in terms of understanding how markets work, how policies work. And I think that you're going to see a really big spread of difference between those two guys. I think it's going to be quite remarkable and pretty extraordinary to see. But Kamala Harris is just not resonating. So what is a Democrat to do in this environment? I mean, what do you do when the likes of your base is somehow just not there, whether it be the Teamsters, whether it be the union members, or whether it be Hispanics? So even MSNBC now is admitting the Hispanics are just not coming on board with the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz message. Take a peek.
We ask a basic question of Hispanic voters. Which party do you more identify with? 37% now say Republicans, 49% say Democrats. But again, look at how this has shifted in just the last dozen years. In 2012, this was a 41-point advantage for the Democrats. It has come all the way down to 12 points, Kristen, a 29-point drop in terms of that gap there on which party Hispanics identify with in just 12 years.
Incredible, right? I mean, this has just sort of happened under the likes of Donald Trump. And somehow the answer is, okay, we're just going to open the border and let more people in hopes of, well, more Hispanics may vote for us. I actually think it's kind of the antithesis of that. I think a lot of Hispanics are like, wait a second, I came here the right way. I worked hard. I respect my family. I have a certain number of family values. I have a certain kind of work ethic. And I don't appreciate all the handouts that you're suddenly giving everybody just for showing up. And so they're losing ground with Hispanics in a really major way. Now, they haven't tipped it. Republicans haven't tipped it, as you saw in those numbers. But the fact that she is not able to pull through more with Hispanics, what's going on? I mean, what's happened to the base, the unions? Men. I mean, Hispanics, black men. She can't get them. So maybe she's just going to bank on women all the way, or women really going to be able to deliver it for her? Listen, I hate to break it to you, Kamala, but sometimes women have an even harder time with women. We found this with none other than Hillary Clinton, who couldn't seem to score the women vote or the male vote or the black vote or the Hispanic vote, or, Any of the votes for that matter. Actually, I shouldn't say that. It was a closer election than anybody on the right anticipated. I mean, those of us on the right, I kept saying, what are you talking about? Don't count Trump out. Because I look at that poll data and I'm like, I don't think anybody's actually telling the truth. And I'm saying it again. And yet here we are, where I don't think anybody's telling the truth, at least if they support Trump. And we're looking at a really narrow spread. And then in some polls, like the Atlas poll, what do you know? He's winning the whole darn thing. And I keep saying, as goes Pennsylvania, as goes the country, as goes the Oval Office. So if he takes Pennsylvania, and I think he can, he's got a real shot of winning the entire thing. So this scares. Remember, subscribe, share, like, all that stuff. This scares the living daylights out of the left. This scares the left so much that now you're starting to hear more and more chatter about some kind of spooky October surprise. They're like, just wait, we got something else up our sleeves. I mean, come on, really? I mean, we've already been through 2, sadly, assassination attempts. We've been through them changing their candidate. And now they're saying, hey, just wait for it. There's more, ladies and gentlemen. Dun, dun, dun. Here's Hillary promising that.
Brief final question. You liken yourself to Cassandra, the Greek mythological figure who could see the future and the prophecies, but was never believed. Putting that Cassandra hat on for the moment, but we're listening. What is something you see happening in the near future that we should be taking more seriously?
Well, I do think that the press needs a consistent the press that's not supporting Trump. Blatant.
I'm just going to pause it for a second because you see what she's saying. The press needs a consistent narrative. How dare you, those press members that are not supporting my candidate, my side, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, how dare you?
Very persistently. The press that's trying to be the press, be objective, be, reporting the facts. The press needs a consistent narrative about the danger that Trump poses. Because, people may still look at the danger and say, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I'm going to vote for him for X, Y, or Z. But okay. But at least people need to be woken up and given the facts about what he has done, is saying, and would do. And
again, have we not heard that over and over and over and over again from the media? How scary it is. How, this is like, the beginnings of World War II all over again. My gosh, I mean, it's all we hear, but apparently it's not enough.
Anticipate that, something will happen in October, as it always does. The Russians, as I said earlier, are very active in this election. We know the Iranians are active as well. Chinese uses TikTok, or they certainly did against Biden and for Trump. I think they're a little less pro-Trump right now. So you look at where people get their information, and they get their information largely from social media. And so the campaign is doing the best job it can to combat both domestic and foreign false disinformation. But I anticipate there will be a full court press in October. The digital airwaves will be filled. And why does that matter? Because the press that is pro-Trump anyway, oftentimes stories are put on digitally that then are picked up by, let's say, at Fox and others.
Ooh.
And then those stories are stories, so the mainstream press reports on them, and so that story then takes on a life of its own. There will be concerted efforts to distort and pervert Kamala Harris, who she is, what she stands for, what she's done. I mean, look, the crazy story about me running a child trafficking operation.
Okay, all right, Hillary. So you get the idea here. You get the idea. Look, I'm not going to dispute that there's misinformation, disinformation out there, but let's be very clear with each other. It's on both sides. I mean that. It's on both sides. What do you think the whole dossier that Hillary Clinton put out was, other than misinformation, disinformation? Paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. You had 51 ex-spooks who made sure that the New York Post lost its Twitter account, and that plenty of other people were affected because you weren't allowed to share a story about a certain laptop that turned out to be absolutely 1,000% true. Because that was misinformation, disinformation. So you see where this goes, all right? I'm not saying that everybody is perfect. And by the way, sometimes the truth is kind of hard to get at, and you get a little bit of this information, you get a little bit of that information. And ideally, in a real democracy, a real republic, guess what? We get to make our own decisions. We get to look at all the information that's out there and come away with what we believe. But they don't want you to believe that. They really, really don't. More on that in a moment. But first, what is this October surprise? What is it? I mean, Carville said the same darn thing, right? He went on CNN the other night, James Carville, who used to run the Clinton campaign, and said, something tells me something else is going to happen. I don't know what it is, but the idea is we get 42, now we get less than 40 days to go. 6 weeks is a sprint to the finish. I think there's another plot twist coming. So Hillary's talking October surprise. Carville's talking October surprise. What are they thinking about? I'm going to tell you what one source said to me. Somebody pretty high up, off record, said to me that he believes there's a real chance they're actually going to try and put Kamala Harris into the job. Just a couple weeks before the actual election, they might actually say Joe has to step down, Kamala jumps in. And that's her opportunity to do the big Oval Office address to the nation. She's taking over. That's her opportunity to become the first female president, the first female Black Indian president, right, in the history of the nation. And they're hoping that sort of feel-good wave rides her right through into the ballot boxes there with people casting their vote because they don't necessarily want change. I don't know if that helps the left. I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to be completely frank with you. I don't, if I were advising them, I'd say I wouldn't bother with that because I think people really want change. The fact that she's tethered, as we should say, to Joe Biden is actually not something that helps her. And if she's actually running the administration and we get another jobs report or another employment or confidence report or any of these things, it then hurts her even more. So I don't think that October surprise of putting Kamala Harris in as the first female president of the United States, I don't think that that's actually really going to play in Peoria, so to speak. I mean, hey, it plays in Peoria because it's Illinois. And if you go back to that map, like it's one of the few places where we can anticipate, the blue's going to come through. But even there, guys, I mentioned this on Friday's show. I'm amazed because even in the state of Illinois, look at that blue. Everything else around it could go red. You're not seeing enthusiasm. In fact, in the 2020 election, you had over 3 million Democrat ballots being requested by this point in time. And guess what we get now? 990,000. Okay, I get it. It was COVID. It was 2020, this, that, and the other. But hey, you know what else? If you go back to some of the other years, like 2016 and 2018, you see 1.4 million requested, 1.6 million requested. So why is it that in the here and now, nobody's requesting, at least comparatively, compared to past elections? Why are you not seeing the enthusiasm for the Democrat ballots in the state of Illinois? I'm watching the same data coming to us in the state of Virginia, where Republicans are actually up some 7 points from where they were in 2020. Democrats are actually down like 1.6 compared to where they were in 2020. Granted, Democrats have still requested more absentee ballots than Republicans in the state of Virginia. But again, it points to the enthusiasm. Where is the enthusiasm? It's not there with the Kamala Harris crowd. It's just not there. Oh, we have a lot of news. Do you know that Letitia James and Juan Merchan could get disbarred? Really? I mean, this is serious stuff. We're going to get to it in a second. But first, just a shout out for my vitamins that I take every day. That would be Balance in Nature. You know, my doctor said, Trish, you really need a little more vitamin D. And he wasn't kidding. I needed it. But I got it. I got it thanks to these guys. I take this stuff every day. My fruits and veggies from Balance of Nature. You know, there's a lot of deals out there I've seen online. Some other people have certain deals. I want to just tell you, don't just ignore all those deals because I'm pretty sure we get the best one right here, right now for you. 35% off. If you call this number, if you go to the website and you use my name as your discount code, just use discount code Trish, Balance of Nature, 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751, or go to Balance of Nature. I'm going to put it in the show notes. I think it's there for you, balanceofnature.com. Discount code Trish, Trish, because you need to take your fruits and veggies too. You also get free shipping, guys. So that's a big deal as well. Listen, this is a wonderful product. My kid's music teacher, some of you who watch the show every day, you know that because my kid's music teacher was like, hey, Trish, you take Balance of Nature too. I love it. I've been taking it for years. And I'm like, wait a second, you listen to the show? And you take Balance of Nature, win, right? Anyway, check them out, guys. Balanceofnature.com. Use my name for 35% off and the free shipping because it's a really, really good deal. And we want the deals. All right. Former Secretary of State John Kerry echoing Hillary Clinton. We just heard from Hillary Clinton about how it's the media's fault. It's the media's fault, and it's the media's fault again. She put on her quote-unquote Cassandra hat for a moment to say what was really wrong, and that's that nobody really understands how dangerous Donald Trump is because they haven't gotten the message in the media. I mean, I think the media's gotten the message. I look at the mainstream media, and I'm like, I hear you guys loud and clear. I mean, the problem is you keep saying it over and over and over again, and then along the way, little things turn out not to be so true. I mean, the things that you tell us are absolutely true turn out to be false, and then vice versa. So that's kind of a problem. Anyway, John Kerry doesn't like that very much because, he used to be able to control earlier in his career, apparently, the media. And nowadays, good luck. Listen to him here. This actually is coming to us, I think, from Davos, so from a few months back. But it speaks volumes about the way he's thinking, the way Hillary Clinton's thinking, the way they're blaming their potential loss on the diversification of the media, right? The fact that I can do this here right now with you, talk to you one-on-one. I mean, how incredible is that? We should be celebrating that. We should be appreciating the diversity in opinions. And instead, John Kerry, sap that he is, says this.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact that kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need.
Okay, I just have to stop it for 1 second, right? Like I'm a journalist. I've always been a journalist. I mean, hey, you can go back to 5th grade and I was writing articles for my hometown paper. That really scares me. When he starts to say we need to tweak some of this stuff because, the First Amendment is in the way. Whoa, we have a problem. We have a big, big problem. That's a red alert. Let's keep going.
Is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change. Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways, and so that's really dangerous.
Really, if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now, and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
It's scary. I mean, that's flat out scary, you guys. This is a guy who believes it's his way or the highway. He doesn't like the other side. He doesn't like that he can't control the narrative. He doesn't like that he potentially may not win. So he wants to win so he can do what? So he can control the narrative and he can, I'm assuming, limit your First Amendment right. What are we going to turn into then? Again, I'm not saying that there isn't disinformation, misinformation out there, okay? You know what? I have many examples of the left floating lots of disinformation and misinformation out there. But if we don't have checks from the right to say, hey, you know what? That doesn't quite seem there. What are we going to do? And they don't want those checks. Hillary Clinton saying something quite similar most recently. Hey, she wants to lock you up. Good luck. That's what they're going to do in California, right? You so much as tweet out a little meme, little humorous meme, and Gavin Newsom's going to come after you with everything he's got. Hillary says, hooray, go for it.
There are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence. Because
criminally charged? Okay, she wants to charge somebody criminally if they put out information that is at odds with what she wants put out. You understand who's doing that right now? Over there in the UK, that's pretty popular, right? That's not who we are in the United States of America. And you know what? Tough luck, guys. Tough luck if you can't fully micromanage the narrative. But I'm a big believer in that the best cure to wrong speech is more speech. All right, we need more and more. And the diversity of opinion that you can get, I'm telling you, make sure you subscribe because you need to know when I'm here. And God forbid these clowns actually, try and limit this. And it's happened. It's happened to me before on accounts, not specifically where I am right now live, but I've seen it over on Facebook, for example. You could not share that story about Hunter Biden even after his dad had already been elected. And that is really troublesome. And it's really, really, really wrong. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, make sure you like. I'm looking at your comments here in real time. I know this gets everybody's Irish up, right? What do they say? Everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day. And, we all get a little bit of our blood boiling when we hear this stuff because it's so at odds with who we are as a nation. Letitia James and Juan Merchon are finding themselves in a little bit of trouble, I suspect, right now, because it turns out that their whole case against Donald Trump, well, you know what? It may get thrown out. It's in the appellate court right now, and, the appellate judges are saying, what the heck did you people do? We know what Letitia James wanted to do. She wanted to go after his assets. She wanted to seize Trump Tower. She was like a rabid dog, this woman. She was going after all of it. Watch.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
Well, it turned out he got the bond. By the time it was all said and done, it was somewhere around nearly $500 million. So these people are going after him for $500 million on some, pun intended, trumped-up charges. I mean, this was wild. This one, perhaps, to me, at least as a business reporter, it was so concerning to all my sensibility and to all my training and understanding of fairness. So do not forget what went down here. Remember, he requested a loan from his bank, Deutsche Bank, and as collateral for that loan, he said, I've got Mar-a-Lago, and I've got, Trump Tower, my apartment at Trump Tower, and it turned out that maybe the square footage was off a bit. I'm not condoning that, but these are sophisticated parties, and Deutsche Bank was required to do its own due diligence. He also listed Mar-a-Lago at a valuation that somehow offended Letitia James, who thought it was only worth $14 million. Yeah. Hey, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Heck of a lot more than $14 million is what it's worth. I would have bought it for $14 million. Hey, we could have gotten a few together and that would have been a quick profit. So who is Letitia James to actually be deciding what the value of some real estate in Palm Beach, Florida is? I would like to know. What is she doing getting in the middle of this transaction? Well, guess what? The court wants to know the exact same thing. Here we go. So there was this appellate court ruling, or rather hearing, I should say, for about 50 minutes last week. And this did not get reported by the mainstream media. No, you're not going to hear about this from them because you know what? It points to just all the disgusting stuff these people did. So I quote one of the justices who's talking to the lawyer for the state, who's arguing on behalf of Letitia, etc. This one, John Higgett, said, quote, "I'm sorry, what's being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors." And then another one, Justice Peter Moulton said, quote, "There has to be some limitation on what the Attorney General can do in interfering, he said, in these private transactions where people don't claim harm." In other words, nobody was claiming any harm. Deutsche Bank got paid back and then some with interest. And yet Letitia gets in the middle of all this and the lawyer's like, yeah, forgive me, this is the justice at the appellate court saying, private transaction. Just exactly what are you getting at here, lady? Well, the woman who's representing Letitia, New York's Deputy Solicitor General, Judith Vale, said, no. You know, this is important because if Trump could do that, then he could maybe get a lower interest rate. And so this was a fraudulent thing and we need to prevent this from happening. To which the other justice, David Friedman, said he couldn't find another example of a state attorney general's office using the fraud law so broadly. Quote, "You've got two really sophisticated parties in which no one lost any money. Other cases," he said, "involve damage to consumers or the marketplace. You don't have anything like that here." End quote. Dun-dun-dun. So what were they doing? What were they doing? I mean, this was Donald Trump's point all along. Rightly so, because it was really kind of bonkers.
New York State judge just ruled, and he's crooked as you can get. And a lot of people expected something like this, but not for the amount. But this is a very dishonest man. This is a man that's been overturned already on this case 4 times. But a crooked New York State judge just ruled that I have to pay a fine of $355 million for having built a perfect company. Great cash, great buildings, great everything. It affects New York. It's mostly talking about New York, where we have a totally corrupt attorney general. She campaigned on the fact that I will get Trump, I will get Trump. Everybody's seen it. Letitia James, they've all seen it. Well, we'll be appealing, but more important than that, this is Russia, this is China, this is the same game. It all comes out of the DOJ, it all comes out of Biden. It's a witch hunt against his political opponent, the likes of which our country has never seen before. You see it in third world countries, banana republics, but you don't see it here. So I just want to say this. You build a great company. There was no fraud. The banks all got their money, 100%. They love Trump. They testified that Trump is great customer, one of our best customers. They testified beautifully. And the judge knows that. He's just a corrupt person. And we knew that from the beginning. We knew it right from the beginning because he wouldn't give it to the commercial division. This judge thought Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, and it's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times that amount. So we realized that. He ruled against me before he even got the case. He ruled against me. He said I was guilty. He didn't know what I was guilty of before he even got the case. And Letitia James, that's another case altogether. She's a horribly corrupt attorney general, and it's all having to do with election interference. There were no victims because the banks made a lot of money. They made $100 million. And by the way, I paid approximately $300 million in taxes as the migrants come in and they take over New York. I paid over this period of years over $300 million in taxes, and they want me out. Oh, let's see if we can get them out. These are radical left Democrats. They're lunatics, and it's election interfering. So I just want to thank you for being here. will appeal, will be successful, I think, because, frankly, if we're not successful, New York State is gone. People are moving out of New York State, and because of this, they're going to move out at a much faster rate. They used a statute, it's a consumer fraud statute, that's never been used for a thing like this before. They used it on me because I'm running for president. I'm beating Biden by a lot. We're beating not only the Republicans, we're beating Biden by a lot. The poll came out today, we're up 20 points on Biden. If I weren't running, none of this stuff would have ever happened. None of these lawsuits would have ever happened. Nothing would, I would have had a nice life. But I enjoy this life for a different reason. We're going to make America great again. These are corrupt people. These are people that shouldn't be allowed to do the things they do. And they're using this as weaponization against a political opponent who's up a lot.
And see, I think that actually now we're looking at a situation where both Judge Merchan and Letitia James could potentially be disbarred. Because if you can prove that this was entirely politically driven, then you're going to have a whole set of problems. Are you not, ladies and gentlemen? Because take a look. Again, you heard what Donald Trump said. Justice David Friedman saying exactly the same thing. Quote, that he couldn't find another example of a state attorney general's office ever using and applying the fraud law so broadly. You have two sophisticated parties. There was no one claiming any damages. And if you were to take this and just run around and try and get in the middle of every single deal, what kind of economy are you going to have left? Oh, dare I say, a communist economy. Is that what they want? I think it is what they want. I find this pathetic, disgusting, horribly political, and I would not be surprised. You watch. This is the kind of stuff you get disbarred for. Letitia James, Juan Merchan. Careful what you wish for. I'll tell you, Juan, you should have backed out of that case while you still had the chance. You really should have. It's terrible that they're doing this kind of stuff. It really is. Because that is not a fair society. Listen, I want you to go over and look at some great friends at Heritage have put together Project 2025. I like it. You know what Donald Trump keeps saying? Oh, you know what? I'm not associated with that. He's not. But there are still some really, really good ideas. The left keeps trying to make it into something it's not. But they want to help prevent stuff like this. In other words, this is a great example. This Trump case, with when it was all said and done, $489 million fraudulently valuing parts of his real estate. That's what they charged him. He had to pay $489 million. I'd like to know, can he get the money back? And then some with interest? And can somebody do something about Letitia James? I mean, what kind of recourse do you have? You don't have any. This is part of the problem. And so Project 2025 is trying to fight back against some of those things. Go check them out when you get a chance. Go to 25truths.org or Project 2025, because we can't have this stuff happen. We just can't. And that's one of the tenets of what they're looking at, how to get rid of this deep state action, because you need less government in this case, not more. This is a perfect example of government gone wild. I'll tell you, you got corporations out there trying to kiss you know who's, you know what. A lot of them. It's just been revealed which corporations in America are which way or another. Let's take a look, shall we? How do you like this? Okay, so now we've got, I'm going to look at it with you. You can see some of them have some red. Company called ICE has a lot of red. Company called Liberty has a lot of red. You've got a company, Microsoft, with a surprising amount of red. I'm shocked that Blackstone has that much red. 85% of the money that they're donating is going to the GOP, the Republican share, 85%. It tells you something. They don't want a communist. They don't want Kamala Harris with her commie notions taking over the joint. No. But some are perfectly fine. Funny enough, the entertainment company, Netflix, 100%. They don't have $1, not one penny going to any Republican. That's very interesting, don't you think? I mean, I find that sort of fascinating. Netflix. Now, you know, when was the last time I even watched a Netflix show? I mean, I don't watch it. I actually need to cancel my subscription. And this is exactly what a lot of people did. They canceled their Netflix subscriptions because they're like, Not for us. No, thank you. No, thank you. And there's a big article in Bloomberg today about exactly this. So Reed Hastings, that's the CEO of Netflix, is seeing a whole bunch of cancellations after none other than all this information came out about their donations. So Netflix employees donating 100% of their dollars to all Democrats. And sure enough, people are firing back. Rate of cancellations almost tripled after Trump backers called for action against the streaming service. Now, look, I'll tell you this. I don't buy into cancel culture. I don't like cancel culture, but you know what? Sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is. And sometimes when a company is not really performing that well, you don't really want to actually be shelling out all that money every single month. Disney's a great example, right? They've lost a lot of subscriptions. Disney is challenged because they don't have a ton of entertainment coming our way. You just look at the movie flops. Great example. Well, Netflix is having a similar challenge. It's almost like they got Bud Lit. Is that like a verb now, to be Bud Lit? I mean, Netflix looks like it just went the way of Bud Light. And here's what's interesting. There may be substitutes. I mean, it's harder for Disney. We've talked about this because you can't necessarily as easily substitute one for the other like you could with Bud Light. With Bud Light, you could say, no thanks, I'm going to go have Coors Light instead. And that's a very, very easy trade to make, and you don't have to deal with the political headache. But this is theoretically different, right? If they had some great shows, people might actually watch them. But this is double whammy because, much like Bud Light didn't have a good beer, right? Let's be honest. I mean, sorry for any of you who really like it. It's kind of a terrible beer. Not that I'm much of a beer drinker. I prefer champagne. Thank you very much. But not a great beer. Netflix, not a great product. Not a great product. And people are voting right here with their feet. Again, take a look at this headline crossing on Bloomberg. Netflix cancellations spiked after Reed Hastings donated to Kamala Harris. He gave her some $7 million, ladies and gentlemen. And clearly, if you want to work at Netflix, you got to be part of the crowd. They're all donating as well to only Democrats. So people are like, oh yeah, well, we can play that game too. And consequently, they're pulling the cord, so to speak, or they're ending the subscription. And so Netflix is in a tighter spot than it should otherwise be. But it deserves it. I'll tell you, it does deserve it. Make sure to subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. We have talked about companies like this on 76 Research. Let me just show you. I'm so proud of our income builder portfolio. You can see median stock total return up 15% versus S&P up 6%. This is for the last 3 months ending 8/29/24. But just a wonderful, wonderful portfolio there of companies. 10 to 15 stocks in each one of our model portfolios there at 76 Research. I encourage you to go over. Let me just put that up for you guys. 76research.com. Here it is. Go over there. Take a look. Take a look at this because I started this. This is my labor of love. I really wanted to be able to do something for all of you to kind of just help orient you in this crazy marketplace. And look, the reality is a lot of financial professionals are being paid sort of back-end dollars, right? So you put somebody in this fund or that, blah, 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 and there's this sort of transaction fee that takes place. The advantage with what Rob and I are doing here is there's none of that. So you're getting research that, frankly, hedge funds would pay thousands and thousands of dollars for, and you're getting this at $9.95 a month, plus you can get a model portfolio for another $22 or so on top of it. We actually have a special. You can just type in code dollar, DOLLAR, code dollar to get the 76 report. Go to 76report.com for that. Or if you want the more portfolios, go to 76research.com. Again, we've seen just such an outpouring from all of you, which I so appreciate. The whole idea here is let's keep it really cheap so you get the best research, and we're super transparent. Our only incentive here is to make sure that you're seeing some success. So that is 76research.com. You can also follow us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, 76 Research. I'll tell you, Americans, they are tired. They're tired of sort of, being dictated to by these really lefty companies. And that's what you're seeing take effect there with Netflix. So we'll continue to watch that stock price. Rob and I have written about Disney, for example. And Disney's a tough story. I mean, Nelson Peltz did well with it, but they should have listened to Nelson Peltz, and they didn't. So Disney's continuing to kind of see its own set of challenges. I'm just looking at the commentary because I'm anticipating something from Don, our good friend Don Baca, who's always here in the chat, and he hates Disney. As a trader, and he used to trade, so he really, really hates Disney. But I want to get to another big story because we got some stuff coming up there on CBS News tomorrow night. Tim Walz is really showing his stripes. He went out to Michigan to try and convince Michigan voters to vote for him. Somebody started yelling a pro-Trump thing, and what did the guy do? He gave him a really, really vulgar gesture, telling me there's no way this guy should be the vice president of the United States of America. I mean, he is low class on steroids. This guy is a socialist who thinks the answer to somebody saying something pro-Trump is to do this. Are you kidding me? Let's watch it. We might have to watch it twice.
Oh, yeah. Trump 2024, baby!
Yeah, we do. Watch. You're going to see his middle finger go straight up. Tim Walz, keeping it classy, buddy. Let's see if he gives JD the middle finger tomorrow night. Can you imagine that? So they're squaring off in this debate. And I can tell you, Timmy Walz doesn't really stand a shot. And I'm not being a snob here or anything, but JD is just intellectually superior to this guy, to Timmy, who is the only answer to give a middle finger to somebody who has a different point of view. It's like, that's what they do, right? They don't want to hear the other side. We got to just arrest everybody on the other side. We got to put them in prison. We need criminal prosecution opportunities, according to Hillary Clinton. I mean, hey, they tried it in New York City, $489 million to Trump, a fee for something that, by the way, is not actually illegal. So that's why those two are going to be out of jobs there in Letitia James and Juan Merchan. I digress. The point being that this debate tomorrow night is going to be a fascinating contrast, in my estimation, between somebody who's got the chops, so to speak, intellectually to be able to do the job, and by the way, walks the walk and talks the talk because he grew up super poor. All right, he actually lives the American dream that Tim Walz doesn't want you to have a shot at. The American dream that somehow he actually thinks, is not for everyone. He actually is proud of the fact that none of his students at his high school have ever gone to an Ivy League school. I mean, can you imagine a teacher being proud of something like that? I think that tells you a whole lot, ladies and gentlemen, a whole lot about who this guy is and the problems he has. This came up recently. Let me see if I can find the clip for you, because it came up recently on none other than CNN. And it was actually fantastic. I loved this because I'm looking at a CNN analyst. Granted, he's Republican. They have to have one for every 10 Democrats they have. They're in some kind of unofficial rule on the network. And this was incredible to me because this guy just totally put it all in perspective as to who Tim Walz really is. And it's not complimentary, but you saw the middle finger. You just saw that. Obviously, the guy is not sort of playing with a full deck. I think we know that. He is a buffoon.
Well, Walz is a buffoon. I'm sorry. This guy, he's the only school teacher in America who brags that none of his students can get into an Ivy League school.
I had 24 kids in my high school class, and none of them went to Yale.
He's had one consequential press interaction with our Dana Bash, who asked him about the fabrications in his own resume, and his answer was essentially, me no understand words good.
My wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar's not always correct, but again,
I mean, he's a buffoon. He's on a free ride for running under Harris. He gets very little press. They don't let him talk to the press for a reason. I want one thing out of this debate. I want JD Vance to go out there and get under his skin. He has legendary hot, short temper. A lot of governors do, but apparently he does. I want JD Vance to go out there and have him explain why he is denigrating JD Vance's story. Small-town America ends up making something better out of his life, which is something we should want for every kid.
Oh, that is great. That is just awesome. So way to go to that CNN contributor. Really, really terrific stuff. Listen, it's going to be a fascinating debate tomorrow night. I do think that JD has the upper hand. CBS has said they're going to keep the microphones open. So that'll make it entertaining, right? We'll get to see whether Timmy's going to give him the middle finger there on stage tomorrow night. That's the answer to it. I mean, I'm shocked, disgusted. I can't believe this is the best we can do. Ladies and gentlemen, what is wrong with America when you got Timmy and Kamala? I'm telling you. I mean, it really makes me want to invest in gold, right? Quick shout out to our friends again in American Heart for Gold. Just text Trish, my name, to 65532 for your chance to get up to $15,000 with qualifying offers of free silver when you buy gold from American Heart for Gold. Go to trishlovesgold.com, trishlovesgold.com. Again, text my name, Trish, Trish. You know how to spell it, 65532. You can also call them at 1-844-495-1115. Again, 844-495-1115. But these people are so over the top for one side. I mean, they're so in the tank. It's just really gross and inappropriate to see. You want to talk gross and inappropriate? Let's talk about Jen Psaki and her interview with Kamala Harris's husband, Doug. So Dougie sits down for this interview with Jen Psaki, who, by the way, in and of herself, is just kind of a train wreck, because you want to talk about bias. How can she call herself a journalist for MSNBC when she used to be the flack for the White House? She's not a journalist. She is someone that they go to help send their message out, right? It's effectively like marketing. They have a marketing department at MSNBC. All the people there that are working there are part of that marketing department for the Kamala Harris campaign. And so this was a marketing interview. She sits down with Dougie Boy and then starts flattering him, forgetting all the while, of course, that little story about him and the nanny. You know, I don't really think this is who we should be holding up to the rest of America as some kind of testament for what we want men to be. This guy's a bad dude.
Important part, an interesting part of how people have talked about your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
Can we throw up now?
Funny, I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this. And to me, it's the...
I've just always been such a great guy. And that's why, I left my kids and my wife of many years because somehow I impregnated the nanny. I mean, it's gross, all right? The whole thing is gross. I don't even like talking about this stuff. But you know what? They talk about it with Trump. I mean, at least Trump wasn't preying on, the kid's nanny, for goodness sakes. I mean, Dougie, come on. And Jenny, try to pretend you're a journalist. If you just try and maybe like channel it a little bit, you might get a little bit better at your job instead of fawning all over these people non-stop. It's nauseating. It's hard for America to watch. And you know what? Frankly, it doesn't help your case. It actually makes it that much more likely that Americans are going to recoil from the likes of Kamala and Timmy and Dougie and the rest of them because they don't like what you're selling. They don't like what Hillary Clinton's selling. They don't like Barack Obama all that much anymore either, for the record. Okay. This is wild to me, this next story. The Justice Department is suing Alabama, the state of Alabama, because Alabama went and kicked 3,000 people off of its voter rolls because they're saying, okay, there's 3,000 people that are on here that shouldn't be on here. It's kind of like we saw the other day when Oklahoma kicked off some 600,000 people or so. You had Texas also kicking off nearly 1 million because they're like, okay, these are people that don't actually live here anymore. These are people that are actually deceased. These are people that we've reached out to 2 or 3 times and we cannot get any kind of answer from them. These are people that have moved. So why are they still on the voter rolls? And why would the DOJ actually be suing to keep those 3,000 people on there in Alabama? It kind of seems counterintuitive, does it not? I mean, what has happened to this country, where now you're in an environment where there's so much desire to bring everybody in over the border and then somehow get them to the voting booths, right? We're going to somehow offer citizenship and the ability to vote in these elections. Part of what they found in Alabama was some of these people were not legally able to vote. So wouldn't you want to clean that up? I mean, shouldn't you want to clean that up? Isn't that the right kind of thing to do as an American? That's what's so bizarre about all this. I don't know where this gets them, because don't forget, the Hispanics are not actually their friends there in the Democrat Party. I mean, MSNBC even admitted it. Yeah, the Hispanics are not really buying what Kamala and company are selling. And so consequently, you see all the data, for example, what we saw in Arizona just the other day, proving the Hispanics are backing off. He's up some 11 points with Hispanics in Arizona. So they want to try and keep these 3,000 people on when it's been proven that somehow they've moved or they weren't allowed to vote in the first place. And it kind of makes you doubt, ladies and gentlemen, just exactly who they are and what they want. These people that are trying to go after Alabama, in this case, the Harris-Biden DOJ. Pretty frightening. Meanwhile, what about helping out people in some of these states that have been so afflicted by the hurricane? You've seen the pictures. It's just terrible. And the victim count keeps going up, and it's horrible to see. And we know it. And our heart goes out to them. And the president was asked over the weekend whether or not there were any additional resources. I'm kind of surprised. I saw this one sort of coming, and I'm like, well, hey, this is like perfect opportunity. I can come in like big man on campus, right? I'm Joe Biden. I can start giving money here, there, and everywhere to all the people afflicted by the hurricane, and I can do it. I'm the federal government. In this case, they need it. It's an emergency, etc. I thought this was sort of a no-brainer that he would take that opportunity to do it. And oddly, this was his reaction.
We've given them all everything that we have. On the ground ahead of time, so we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we've given them, we have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet. Hadn't asked for it yet.
All right, so he had a significant amount. It had been planned, but they don't have anything extra. So that's not going over so well with a lot of people that are really struggling right now, especially in light of what was said on Friday. $2.5 billion going to Ukraine.
First, right now we have to strengthen Ukraine's position on the battlefield. And that's why today I'm proud to announce a new $2.4 billion package of security assistance. I've also directed the Pentagon to allocate all the remaining security assistance funding that has been appropriated for Ukraine, period, by the end of my term, which is January 20.
So, it just doesn't feel good. I realize 2 totally different situations, 2 totally different budgets, but the American people are really feeling as though they're being neglected. They feel that their safety has been neglected. They feel that their economy has been neglected. And they feel that when you need your federal government, the federal government is not there. The federal government's there apparently for Ukraine, but not there for the United States of America and its citizens. And this is what Kamala is going to have to overcome. Can Mamala, as Hollywood likes to call her, really transcend this? Can she break through and convince people that she can help ensure their safety when she has not tried to do this in any way, shape, or form over the last 3.5 years? I mean, the woman wouldn't even go to the border. Remember that when she became the border czar? She wouldn't even go down to the border. It was odd. She didn't like getting the assignment because she doesn't believe in borders, and now she wants to turn around and pretend she does. Well, Americans, they do have memories. They're not as dumb as you think, Kamala. And so we can see through it. And we will see through it. You know who sees through it? Let me go to, this is great. A Hollywood star is stunning all of Hollywood. He's stunning his friends in LA because he just came out for Donald Trump. And they're like, whoa, what are you doing, buddy? I mean, this must be career suicide. It's got to be career suicide. He must really not care. So I found this kind of funny because I don't watch a lot of entertainment shows or a lot of TV, but I really liked this show. It was a show called Chuck. It was on NBC. And it was about this guy, this young guy, who gets kind of an AI computer in his head. This was before AI was kind of a thing, right? So he's like this super whiz. He gets this AI computer, and then the CIA and the NSA and everybody's like trying to protect him and make sure that their asset is protected. So he gets, like, of course, a really good looking woman to protect him. And there's a romance and this, that, and the other. And then along the way, they're fighting the bad guys. I thought this show was great. I actually really, really liked it. It wasn't necessary. I mean, it might have been kind of a cult thing. Like, some people liked it, but not everyone. I get it. It's not necessarily everyone's taste, but it did have a decent following, including yours truly. Well, this actor, his name is Zach Levi, he actually has just come out for Donald Trump, and he did an appearance I want to show you over the weekend with Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., and he was really emphatic. Like, this is do or die kind of time, and he feels quite passionately about it. I want to share this with you.
We're going to take back this country. We are going to make it great again. We are going to make it healthy again. And so I stand with Bobby, and I stand with Tulsi, and I stand with everyone else who is standing with President Trump. Because I do believe that of the two choices that we have, and we only have two, Donald Trump, President Trump, is the man that can get us there. And he's going to get us there because he's going to have the backing and the support and the wisdom and the knowledge and the fight that exists in Robert Kennedy Jr. and former Representative Tulsi Gabbard. So
I'm like, you know what? I knew I liked that actor, and I knew I liked that show. Here's a little bit more. I'm going to show you Zach Levy with RFK Jr. and Tulsi right here.
But the thing I wanted to say, and this is to Bobby's point, we are, and you all know this, we are being inundated every single day with poison, not just in the foods that we're eating and not just in the pharmaceuticals that are being shoved down our throats. In the images that we are looking at, the audio that we are hearing through our media, we are being poisoned and lied to. And hear me. We're all being poisoned and lied to. So as we go to the polls, as you guys and your passion and your fervor and wanting to get Donald Trump reelected and recognizing that that is the thing that we need to do, recognize that all of the people on the other side that still believe that Kamala is the answer, they're not, she's not, but they are being lied to. They are not the enemy. They are not evil. There is evil at the top of that food chain. But the American people that believe that Kamala is the way, they are not evil people. They have been lied to, and they have eaten that lie, and it is in them. So to the best that we can do, may we practice grace. May we practice forgiveness. May we practice patience, so that as we go to the polls, as we talk to our friends and our family, and we encourage people to go and look, do not be baited into their attacks. Do not go and be what they want you to be. Instead, hold your ground in dignity and integrity and in love, and say, hey, I understand that you might feel this way. Let's have a conversation. And if you're unwilling to have a conversation, then we don't have to have a conversation. But don't get baited into their hate, because that's what they want you to do. And that will not help us get to a better world, right? So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Like I said, you know what? I liked him as an actor. I liked that show. I think another guy on that show, actually, because I think he follows me on Twitter, another one of those actors is actually very, very conservative too. So I don't know. They're doing this show about the deep state and they all wind up conservative. Funny how that works. Anyway, Zach, welcome to the club. It's good to have you on the team. Because it is pretty serious, right? What he's talking about is that not everybody is hearing the entire story. And we need to make sure that there's a lot of room for all sides here. Not what Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden want to do. Because they want to shut down one narrative entirely. And that's why this election actually is becoming about so much more. I'm starting to sound like the left now, and I don't want to, but, okay. That's funny. That is funny. So my phone just kind of went off all on its own. That's so weird. Oh, it's still doing it. My gosh. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Very, very strange. Very, very. Oh, all right. Great to see you guys. Hey, listen, do me a favor. If you haven't gone to 76research.com yet, I'm putting it in the chat. Make sure you go over there, sign up. Get the $1 76 Report. You can go to 76report.com or 76 Research. Go there for the model portfolios. It's really a good thing to do right about now, right? when as crazy as it all is, I still want you to look out for yourself in light of all this. The piece of my mind, was it a call from John Kerry? I actually heard Tucker's voice on the line. So maybe it was just my YouTube playing. We'll go with that. Don wants me to know the government's watching. Probably. Hey, great to have you. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We'll continue the conversation, of course, hopefully without the government watching tomorrow.